When Hans discovered some mysterious eggs nestled in his crops, he had no idea what they were. Little did he know, the tear-jerking reveal was yet to come after the eggs hatched. From a young age, Hans knew that a desk job was not meant for him. Despite being bright, he sometimes faced challenges in school. It seemed as though there was a limit to how much time he could spend sitting quietly indoors. Once that limit was reached, he had an overwhelming need to move around. Hans used sports and outdoor activities to stay physically active. In high school, he balanced sports and classes like outdoor education. He briefly considered being a vet but faced challenges after high school. After trying different paths, he found joy as a farmhand due to his energy and early riser nature. He excelled and his boss saw him eventually owning and running his own farm. He was a mentor of sorts and wanted to help Hans get started on a solid, lucrative path. This idea was instigated by a huge change in his life. In fact, Hans had recently met a wonderful woman named Bonnie. They hit it off right away on the first date. Bonnie explained that she wanted to live most of her life alongside nature. She was also a lover of sports and outdoor excursions. Before Hans or Bonnie realized it, they were back at the farm, and he was introducing her to the animals. Hans's boss had come out to see what the noise was about and had been overjoyed to find his protege sharing his passion with a good woman. Hans and Bonnie's relationship moved fast. They were both adults who knew what they wanted and needed out of life. So, after a few years of building this amazing relationship, Hans' boss sat him down and helped him find a place for him and Bonnie to settle down. They found the perfect farm, and before long, the two lovebirds were married and moved into their new home. It was an exciting time for the newlyweds. They were carving out their own place in the world, and it was fun being in control of what they did with the farm. They set up fields to grow corn, and a few barns were raised to house pigs, horses, and chickens. They even made a small garden by the house to grow fresh herbs and vegetables for themselves. Time marched on, and the farm grew into a well-oiled machine. Hans and Bonnie had worked out an effortless routine to accomplish all their chores while still making time to enjoy each other's company. It was no surprise when one day the couple announced that they were pregnant with their first child. Before long, Hans and Bonnie were blessed with a beautiful baby girl named Mary. Just a few years after that, they were lucky enough to welcome a second child into the world, another daughter they named Giselle. The family of 4 lived in their own little utopia on the farm, and the girls grew up appreciating nature and animals. They experienced all the labor and steps it takes to make food, so they knew not to take things for granted. Both of them took after their parents and spent as much time as they could outdoors. So the family of 4 was established and happily navigated through life together. It was right around the time to harvest one of the crops, so Hans was getting his tractor and equipment prepared. He had already made a pass around the field a few days prior, but went back to clean it up and get any places he'd originally missed. Hans was about a third of the way through the field when his daughter suddenly jumped in front of the tractor. He slammed on the brakes and watched the machine abruptly halt in front of the girls. Fear and panic swept through Hans, and he was about to climb down and yell at his daughters for being so reckless. He stepped down on the ground and walked towards Mary and Giselle, trying to control his anger. But when Hans saw tears swimming in both his daughter's eyes, he felt all his frustrations set out of him. All that he had left in him was concern. He knelt down to be at eye level with the girls and told them just how much they had scared him. Then he asked them what was wrong. Giselle silently pointed towards the ground a few meters behind her. Then Mary spoke up. She explained that they'd found unfamiliar eggs clustered in the area just behind them. When the girls saw the tractor coming, they had been worried that the eggs would be ruined, so they had jumped in to save them. Hans was confused. His hands were in the coop, so what animals could have laid eggs in the middle of a crop field? He went to investigate and quickly saw what his daughters meant by unfamiliar eggs. They were not ones Hans remembered ever seeing in his life. That begged another question. What type of animal was growing inside those eggs? Hans brought his girls back to the farmhouse and then sent Bonnie to examine the eggs. She returned with the same conclusion. Those were eggs that looked different from any she'd ever seen before. They could not be chicken eggs, that was for sure. She was afraid that they might be snake eggs or something of that sort that would prove dangerous for the girls. So the couple discussed what they should do. Should they just dispose of the eggs to be on the safe side, or should they protect them like they would any other living creature? Of course, the farmers chose the second option. At that, the family of 4 went back to the part of the field laden with eggs. Hans let the girls spread out atop to cover the eggs. Then he went around the perimeter, placing rocks on the edges of the tarp to keep it in place. The girls were so proud and excited to protect those mysterious animals, and Hans and Bonnie appreciated what a cool memory this would be for them to look back on when they were older. Some days passed, and the family ran the farm carefully around their special guests. They would check on the eggs from time to time to see how they were faring. It was Bonnie who saw the first crack in an egg. For a few days afterwards, the family watched carefully, waiting to see their new friends emerge into the world. A few more eggs cracked in the following days, and finally, Hans found a completely open and empty shell somewhere not too far away. He was going to find the answer to his burning question. What was in the egg? The family gathered around and began to look for small creatures in the near vicinity. For a while, they saw nothing, and Giselle, the youngest, opted to return to the unhatched eggs and watch for a new friend to emerge. Then almost simultaneously, the eggs began to crack open and hatch as a small creature peeked out from under some brush. All 4 farmers gasped when they saw what the creature was, and Hans almost immediately burst into tears. The beautiful animals that Mary and Giselle had saved turned out to be Hans' all-time favorite animal, baby peacocks. Amid laughter and tears, the family celebrated as peacocks continued to hatch, their tiny chirps and coos filling the air. These adorable hatchlings promised to grow into stunning birds. Though the egg's origin remained a mystery, more urgent decisions awaited. Hans cherished the peacocks but recognized his farm couldn't house them all. Striking a compromise, he kept a male and a female while selling the others to nearby farms. This decision not only addressed practical concerns but also allowed the family to share their enchanting find with the local community. The act led to vibrant, enduring friendships as the family embraced this colorful and cheerful new chapter. What an amazing find! Could you identify peacock eggs? How might you handle the eggs as well as Hans and Bonnie's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you.